I'm Tim Bradley. Welcome to Capitol Views, and welcome today to Commissioner Douglas Vincent-Lang, Commissioner of Fish and Game. Doug, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Tim. Alaska is really blessed with a diversity of fish and wildlife resources across our state that really form the foundations of many of our cultures, our economy, provide food sources for people across the state, provide jobs for people across the state, and really just in general, Alaskans' well-being are supported through our fish and game resources. And I can't tell you how honored and privileged I am to hold the job of commissioner and want to assure people that we have a really great team of dedicated professionals at the department that are working to ensure that we sustain these resources for future generations and for their use currently, as well as return an investment back to our state. And I use this number often. We basically take a general fund contribution to our department or allocation to our department of about 70 million, and we turn it into an annual return on investment to the state of about $11 billion. So I think if any of us get that kind of a return on investment, we take it in a heartbeat. But no, it is really an honor and privilege to serve as the commissioner of this department.
Commissioner, anybody who likes to fish or eats fish in Alaska cares a lot about what your department does. So maybe you could just touch on a few of the things you're working on.
Well, let me state first that sometimes I'm amazed at the depth of caring that people have over our fish and game resources. Sometimes I wish they would express it a little differently to me, but when I go home in the evening and reflect back on the day, I really am considered to be blessed that people care enough to call, because many other states people don't call and they don't voice their opinion. So we are lucky to have people that care so fundamentally about resources. And that's from fishing, taking their families out fishing, to taking them out dip netting to put fish in the freezer, to basically people going hunting and participating in community hunts across the state to fill their freezers with caribou and moose, to people that are taking their jobs, as commercial fishermen and making a living and providing for their families and paying fish taxes to our state that really support our economies of our coastal communities all across Alaska. So, there's just a diversity. And then, of course, subsistence uses, which, subsistence provides not only food security, but also a cash economy that forms the foundations of subsistence cultures across Alaska. And there's a subsistence priority and something that's very meaningful to me that we're going to strive to ensure that we have that important cultural piece moving forward.
Commissioner, I know this has been a really tough year in the Yukon River Valley because of the poor chum returns. You've had to close off subsistence. Maybe you could just touch briefly on what happened this year, and then we can touch on maybe what was good about Bristol Bay, other regions.
Yeah, so we were surprised. We were projecting to have a normal chum return, at least a chum return that was going to provide for subsistence uses across the AYK region. And this year we had a complete run collapse of both summer and fall chums throughout the drainage. And as a result, we ended up having to close subsistence, which we closed all sport, personal use, and commercial fishing, but then we ended up closing subsistence also. And I toured the area at the invitation of TCC Chief Simon, and I can tell you that it was very insightful and impactful, the voices I heard from those communities about the impact of our closures had. But we have an obligation to ensure that we have sustainability of our salmon runs, and we take that seriously. So we closed those runs, and now we're trying to figure out what is the cause of those run failures so we can direct our research and management actions to rebuild those runs so they can continue to provide for subsistence. But we also provided, alternative food resources. I know it's not the same when we provide sockeye salmon that are frozen or chum salmon that are frozen from Bristol Bay up in those areas, but the governor directed us to make sure that food security for those impacted villages was somehow addressed.
Well, Commissioner, you spoke of Bristol Bay. It was, I guess, an amazing run year for Bristol Bay, but also I heard that the fish were smaller.
Yeah, so we had a record return of sockeye salmon to the Bristol Bay drainage, and this year we're projecting an even larger return. And when we look across the state, I never thought I'd be facing what we're facing this year in Bristol Bay, we can process about 2.3 million sockeye salmon a day before the processing sector gets overwhelmed and have to put the fishermen on limits. And this year, with the return that we're expecting, we're trying to figure out how we can move those fish so that we're not putting fishermen on limits, so that we can maximize the amount of fish that are commercially harvested. And we're thinking about trying to move them into areas with poor salmon returns, like the Cook Inlet, the North Gulf of Alaska processing sectors. So a unique situation. But you're right, fish are returning smaller.
How would the fish be moved? By just, I guess, a lot of airplane flights and extra barge shipments?
Probably barge shipments and tenders.
And just a little of everything.
But you touched on a really important thing, is fish across our state are getting smaller, and they're also returning at a younger age to rivers. And all that is pointing to the fact that the ocean is not a very friendly environment for salmon across our state. So we are now have people out on research vessels and NOAA research vessels in the North Gulf of Alaska, as well as we have a couple brave Alaskans that are going out on a Russian vessel. And it's really to start understanding of what are some of the factors impacting salmon survival in the ocean, so we can direct our research and management more appropriately to address what those are.
Well, what a challenge. How about other parts of the state, like Southeast Alaska, Kodiak, even Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, or what's the harvest outlook situation?
Well, we have generally reduced Chinook production across the state. And again, we're unsure of what that is. There's many issues that have been identified, from food competition from hatchery fish out there to just general competition for like sablefish for those resources out there, to just warm conditions and different changing zooplankton conditions. So we're trying to get a handle on that. But overall, we're seeing excellent return overall for salmon across the state next year, except for the Yukon with chum salmon. We project another poor return up there.
Well, we hope to learn more about that and to work. Hopefully, things will improve for those people. Well, Commissioner, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to having more portions of this program devoted to fish and game activities. So
yeah, we'd be glad to join you. This is good. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Okay.